Today we are going to tackle what makes sports cards worth collecting. Stick around. Hello to all my sports card collectors, investors, all of my collectibles friends. How are we doing? We're back again, guys, with another video. If you're new here and you're looking for sports card collectibles type stuff, this is the channel for you. Hit that subscribe button, all the buttons below to help us get these videos out to the masses. Very much appreciate it. Excited to have you here. Also, don't forget to connect with me on IG at SportsCardDad and then also on Twitter, the SportsCardDad. All right, guys, on the channel, we do talk a lot about hobby news type stuff, and we talk a lot about pricing and pricing movements and kind of economics and finance stuff that is related to the sports card hobby. I really enjoy that. And frankly, I have enjoyed that since I was young. Since I was young enough to have Beckett magazines in the late 80s, I was looking up the prices for stuff and interested in that side as well. But I wanted to talk today, just kind of refocus for today on today's video about the collecting aspect and what got us here in the first place. And for a lot of us, we each have kind of our own story, how we got back into the hobby. But over the last couple of years, there's been a large swath of people that are around my age in that 35 to 50, 55-year-old age range that have gotten back into the hobby, and for a variety of different reasons. What makes cards so cool? What makes them different from anything else, any other widget that you can collect? And I think for one, every card has a story to it. Where has it been? Who has owned it? Which set or print run is involved? Is it scarce? Is it rare? Does it even matter? You might just like the set, regardless of whether or not they printed 1 million or printed a 10 or 100 or whatever it is. What is the player significance of the card? And was it a big year, that particular year that the card came out for that particular player or team? When I think of this, and I have to assume that a lot of kind of the 90s inserts for basketball, for example, a lot of it's tied around Michael Jordan, a lot of those players. 90s was a great time for basketball, a lot of superstars, and just kind of a nostalgic time. I grew up in that era. I was born in 81, so I'm kind of a tweener. I'm a Gen Xer, to where I had some time in the 80s in my childhood, but then also the 90s as well. And when I think about, the 90s, the PMGs and all the inserts and stuff that people chase, you've got to think about kind of the Michael Jordan Bulls and just how dominant they were, how exciting they were, and then all the other players in the league that were trying to also win titles. And so when you think about just those like mid to late 90s Michael Jordan cards, well, that was really kind of the primo time in his career as he was wrapping up winning that second trilogy of titles and really cementing his legacy. For Patriots, Tom Brady's fans, the 2000s, really, it's not even just the 2000s, it's the 2000s and the 2010s. It's wild. But those were great times for those particular players and for that fan base. And for the card market, important for football cards. For me, the New Orleans Saints, I'm a huge New Orleans Saints fan. 2009 is the first year that the Saints ever went to a Super Bowl and ever won a Super Bowl. So, like, for example, I just picked up this Breeze card. I'm a Breeze PC collector, but this is a 2008 Topps Chrome gold refractor. It's numbered out of 199. Of course, not a high grade because it's got a little bit of a crease on the back of it, but I was more interested in the card and the time period. I really like, the 2006 to 2010 stuff like this. The Topps Chrome type stuff would be an example, but that's when the Saints really kind of got going. 2006 was the first year that Breeze came to the Saints from the Chargers. They went to the NFC title game with Reggie Bush, Marcus Colston, an unheralded team, and unfortunately lost to the Bears and did not make it to the Super Bowl. That's where Peyton Manning actually ended up beating the Bears for that Super Bowl win. 2007, 2008 were kind of rocky years for the Saints. We were like 7-9, 9-7. And then 2009 and 10 is when we really took off and just had an amazing year and won the Super Bowl. So I think time periods are fun too when it comes to cards, because you can look back and I can say like, okay, this card was printed during a big time, for the New Orleans Saints and for Breeze in particular. And so makes it even that much more important to me. This all feeds into the nostalgia of cards and collectibles in general. Anytime you find a collector of anything, it is something that is born a lot of times out of nostalgia. For me personally, my parents' divorce in my childhood was a really, really tough event. Sports cards, collectibles, shows like The Simpsons and Living Color. And
I found the secret of eternal life. I looked into God's eyes, and you know what I saw? The juice weasel. Hey, folks, can you tell me what time it is? Time to juice!
These were escapes for me. These were ways to interact with my friends.
Give you autograph!
Oh, so lucky! Then you won't need this A-Rod.
Now, every new Upper Deck card is worth valuable points, so you could win free video games, autographed baseballs, and other great prizes. Go to upperdeckkids.com for free entry. Get more than lucky.
Trading cards or watching The Simpsons or whatever, and kind of getting away from real life type stuff. These were stress relievers. And so I think that a lot of times nostalgia is born out of a traumatic event, and being that you're kind of shutting in your brain, you're kind of shutting off the traumatic event, and you're trying to think of what were some of the good things during that time. And we hold on so tightly, to those good times, those good things, from that time period, because there might be some things that we don't want to think about. And look, not to say that was the end of the world. It was just part of life. It was tough, but life is about these tough things, these tough moments. And it's always about just kind of how we're able to cope and trying to cope in a good way, trying to cope in healthy ways. I think sports cards can be a coping mechanism in a healthy way, assuming you're sticking to your budget and doing kind of all the things that we talk about financially. But it can be a really, really good way to just escape, all the real life stuff that we have to deal with on a daily basis. These young people don't understand what it was like growing up in the 80s. It was definitely a different time, different types of challenges, but also a lot of innocence back in that time period where you're pre-internet, you're outside a lot, you're playing with your friends and you're doing a lot of different things. I mean, kids nowadays it's just a different world. It's not completely different, but technology has really changed the way that we all interact, communicate, some for the better, some not. But that period of time, there was an innocence, kind of that 80s and 90s period of time where life was a lot more simple, it feels like. And so I think that's why we kind of hang on to as well. Another reason why we hang on to that particular time period. Those were amazing decades, the 80s and the 90s. All right, guys. Well, like I said, I wanted to, make a video that's a little bit different. We talk a lot about the economics of cards and collectibles and the hobby. And I really, really enjoy that. And I think a lot of my viewership does as well. At the same time, I also don't want to forget kind of what got us here in the first place into these little pieces of cardboard that we like to talk about and trade and buy and sell and whatever. It's all a good time. So thank you very much for joining me here today. Let me know your thoughts and your story. If you want to share hobby stories, kind of what got you involved and what things you collect, those sorts of things, I would like to hear it in the comments. As always, stay healthy, stay awesome, and I will talk to you again later.